Hello everyone, Jackie Edwards here. Lovely to see you again, to be here again. Whatever I'm supposed to say. Hello. So, today I want to talk about indulgent emotions. So, it's something that, well, I've been working through this morning, which is why I want to talk about it. Now, indulgent emotions are basically kind of like how they sound. They're emotions that we indulge in, so we don't have to feel them. Like, oftentimes we think that, like, we have to feel our emotions, that they're just something that, like, happens to us, but really, at the end of the day, we choose how we feel, even if it feels that we're not choosing it. But if it feels that way, it's only because it's like a pattern, it's a habit, and you are just so used to, or your brain is so used to thinking those thoughts that create those feelings that it just feels like it's not something you're choosing. But we always get to choose our emotions. And indulgent emotions they're really emotions that don't really have any use, but that we like indulge in. Like when we like comfort eat or comfort drink or whatever kind of like addictions and habits that we have. We don't have to do those things. They just like make us think that we feel good. So, an example, today I've been feeling like guilt. So something happened with some of my animals, and I'm like, oh my God. So last night, I'm like, oh my God, this is all my fault. Like, I messed it all up. It basically, it's like, I shouldn't have done that. It's all my fault. I messed it all up. Right. And so that feeling of guilt is like an indulgent emotion. It's not actually like moving me forward anywhere. Like, it's not helpful. Like, me feeling guilt over something doesn't help anything. It doesn't solve anything, doesn't fix anything, it doesn't move anything forward. It doesn't like fix anything from the past, make it better. So I'm just gonna sit differently. So yeah, there is no real purpose for indulgent emotions. And I think when we can start to find them and basically stop feeling them, that's when we can like take our own power back and really create change in our lives or in anything that we do. So for me, again, like I've been feeling really guilty this morning because I keep thinking I messed up. It's all my fault. And all that's created is for me to just sit here and like ruminate over it again and again and again. So it's all my fault. I messed it all up. And then the cycle just continues and continues and continues very, very indulgently. So again, it doesn't make me feel good to feel guilty and to think I've done everything wrong. But I stay there because it's comfortable, it's a pattern, it's a habit that we get into. And it's also something like we think it's going to change something. Like if I feel guilty, if I just shame myself enough, then I'll make change. But that's not how it works. And I am not very good at explaining this bit, but if you read some Brené Brown, she is like the master of talking about shame and guilt and how basically nothing really good is going to happen from feelings of shame and guilt. Like, that's not how we change the world. That's not how we change ourselves. Like, we're not going to be able to become better people just by shaming and guilting ourselves. Like, losing weight. Like, by shaming ourselves and saying, oh my God, I'm such a fat fuck. Like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I stick with this diet? Like, oh my God, I just ate that fucking cake and I shouldn't have eaten it because I'm on a diet. Like, having those thoughts that produce that shame and that guilt, they don't help you lose any fucking weight. Like, does that make you think, oh, yay, can't wait to stick with this diet because look at you, you fat fuck, made all these mistakes, blah, 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 blah. No. Shame and guilt do not move forward. And it's the same, like, we've seen all the fat phobia throughout history and all the shaming and the guilt of towards people that are fat. So you feel it everywhere, like people looking at you and or even talking to you and saying, oh, I'm worried about your health, or have you thought about going on a diet? And, oh, it looks like you might have gained a little bit of weight. Are you sure everything's okay? Like, they're, at the end of the day, thinking that shame or guilt is going to help you lose the weight. They just want to point it out to you to make sure you know, so that you can feel those feelings about it and think that's going to fix it. But honestly, if that fixed it, like, we wouldn't be where we are now. aside from the whole issue of is there actually anything we need to fix. But that was my quick kind of example off the top of my head. So I've been feeling lots of guilt. And that's led me to doing nothing but ruminating and feeling more guilt. So I was thinking, well, what could I feel? Instead of thinking of what happened, again, with my animals, I don't want to go into too many trigger warnings here, so I can think, kind of putting it into facts. So how can I say to the facts? So right now I'm thinking it's all my fault. Like, that's not a fact. Like, a lot of other things went all into this. Honestly, sometimes, like, fucking animals are stupid. Like, I've got guinea fowl, they're, like, the stupidest animals in the world. So, instead of it being all my fault, which is not a fact, not the truth, like, lots of other factors went into it, I could just be like, this happened. So, XYZ happened. And then, instead of thinking it's my fault, I can be like, yeah, that's true. That happened. And that kind of takes me out of that guilt and that shame. Because now I'm just like dealing with just straight facts. Like, XYZ happened. And my brain's like, yes, it happened. And then just like, it's really weird. And this might not always happen, but it, like, the shame and the guilt just like completely disappeared. I'm like, XYZ happened. My brain's like, yep, it happened. And then there's like no feelings anymore. I'm like, yep. And then it's almost like, and then it, like my brain kind of goes to, and now what? So like, and now how do we stop that from happening again? How do we fix it? How do we whatever? Whereas when I was feeling guilt and shame, my brain didn't go to, and how can we fix it? And now what? It just kept thinking, oh, you messed up. Oh, what's wrong with you? And it just kept cycling through that. So it never moved forward into, okay, what next? It just kept me indulging in that emotion of guilt, of shame. And I just kept circling. And that's why I think of them as like indulgent emotions. Just continue to indulge in them and not move forward. Worry is another really similar one that I know we all have. And worry, it's like we all think, oh, it's such a useful emotion because like when I worry about something, that means I'm like fixing it because I'm really, really thinking about it and I'm worrying about it. When really worry is just another one of those kind of like indulgent circular emotions. Like we're just worrying about it. So all we're doing is just ruminating and going around and around and around and around. It doesn't actually have any forward energy until we have a thought like, okay, now what can I do to change this? And when you think a thought like, oh, what can I do to change this? You're not feeling worry anymore. You're feeling like hope or confidence or change or something else. Like from worry, you don't move forward. Worry just takes you in a circle. You just indulge there and just sit there and sit there and sit there and sit there. And often it kind of then leads to shame. So then you think, oh, I did all these things wrong. I'm worried about it. I'm worried about it. I'm worried about it because I'm going to mess it up because I'm not good enough. And you just cycle through and go through shame and guilt pops up and all of this other fun indulgent emotions. And the more I can catch myself when I'm feeling those indulgent emotions and think, oh, wait, is that actually what I want to be feeling? Or is there something that'll be more helpful? Is there something that can actually move me forward? Is there something I really should be feeling? Because there was also sadness. So something happened to my animals. It's all, and then I think, oh, it's all my fault. And then I feel guilt and shame. When really I could think, oh, that's sad. And just feel the sadness. And that would be a lot more useful. To just process that for a minute. And when I realized that, and I said, what if I just thought, oh, this is sad? And I just sat in that sadness for a minute, and I was like, yeah, I can totally acknowledge that. I can get behind that. And then again, kind of processing it, feeling it through my body, then I'm almost ready to move forward with, again, what's next? How can I make sure this doesn't happen again? Versus when I just sit and worry about, oh, what if this happens again? What if this happens again? That just keeps me stuck because I'm like, what if this happens again? And it's not answering a question of, like, what do we do? It's just like, what if this happens again? And then if this happens again, then I feel shame and guilt. So then I'm worried, what if this happens again? Oh, then if this happens again, then I'll feel shame and guilt because it happened again. And then all those bad feelings just keep cycling. Versus if I think, what can I do next? Or if I feel like, okay, I can find a solution. Or if, if I feel just sadness for a minute, let that process. And then think, what's next? And then I can feel that like a little bit of confidence or that little bit of hope of, well, it'll do better next time. I can do better next time. I can figure this out. I can have a plan. So it's not perfect. I'm not completely there yet. I still constantly cycle through all these indulgent emotions. We all do. I was actually just listening to a podcast from one of my coaches, and, I picked the ones that talked about this. And she talked about how she did an exercise where she stayed really conscious of every time she was feeling worry and just redirected her mind. So anytime she became really aware of like, this is how I feel when I'm worried. This is like what I do when I'm worried. Here's like all the things that are kind of like happening when I'm worried, and became really, really conscious of it. And here's what happens like right before I feel worried. And so if you're really, really aware of those things, then it's a lot easier to see it when it's happening, and you can identify it a lot more quickly. And then as soon as you can identify it, you can be like, let's reroute that. Let's redirect that. Let's have something else. Let's say that's not necessary. Move forward, move on. Let's not indulge in the worry. Let's not indulge in the shame and the guilt. They don't fix anything. They don't move us forward. So the quicker we can identify them and see them happening, the quicker we can move on to something useful, something better, even if that something better is feeling the sadness, feeling the anger, feeling the hurt, whatever it is. Because as soon as we can just feel those feelings and process them, then they go away. But when we're covering them up with the worry, with the guilt, with the shame, the fear, then we're not able to process the real underlying emotion. So when I was feeling guilty, it was so that I didn't have to feel the sadness. But when I can just feel that sadness, then I can move forward and figure out what's next. So let's focus on moving forward and being just fucking fabulous and awesome, instead of going around in circles and using our emotions to help us instead of using our emotions to hold us back, because the choice is ours. And that's what I'm going to leave you with today, because I'm super busy and I need to go and get some shit done. So thank you very much, and I will see you again soon.